Here we have an equation given to us. It's not a typical equation that we can just solve by getting a variable by itself, because if you'll notice we have an x squared involved. We can't really get x by itself because of that exponent, plus x squared and x are not like terms. So the best way to solve this is through finding a GCF and factoring. So before we do anything, we need to find our GCF first. And we're going to start with the number. So a number that goes into 24 and 16 is what we're looking for. And remember, by factor, I'm looking for a smaller number that divides into both of these. We're not looking for a multiple. So the number that we're looking for is going to be 8. Then we have to include a variable in our GCF as well. If you notice, both of these have a variable of x. A good rule of thumb to go by is go by the variable with the smallest exponent. So technically this x has an exponent of 1. So 8x could divide into 16x, and 8x could divide into 24x squared. So this is our GCF. What we're doing when we factor is we're essentially undistributing. Factoring is the opposite of distributing. So my GCF is going to go on the outside of my parentheses. And I have to figure out what goes inside in order to make this value equal to this value. So in order to do that, we're going to divide everything by our GCF. We're dividing because, as we said, factoring is the opposite of distribution. When we distribute, we usually multiply by what's inside. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide each term by the GCF. So 24x squared divided by 8x is going to give me 3x, minus 16x divided by 8 is 2. Now, if you're not sure, and I'm going to do this in red, if you're not sure if this is correct, try distributing. 8x times 3x is 24x squared, minus 8x times 2 is 16x. You see how this is the same? So technically it's correct. So now in green I'm going to start solving, because technically now we do have to get x by itself. We're not going to distribute at this time. What we're going to do is we're going to use the zero product property. ZPP, zero product property. What that means is we take each factor, so each thing we're multiplying by, and we set it equal to 0, because if you're multiplying two values together and your result is 0, both of these values can equal 0. So I have my 8x equal to 0, and then 3x minus 2 equals to 0. And then I solve. You can divide 8 on both sides to get x equals 0, which is your first answer. And your second answer, you add 2 to both sides to get 3x equals 2. Divide both sides by 3, and you get x equals 2/3. So this is your second answer. So here's a little trick. If you look at your original question and you look at your exponent, your biggest exponent is 2. Most of the time that indicates how many answers you have.